From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
A great hay harvest.
It turned out pretty good.
We head back to North Dakota as farmers battle back following last year's drought. The Fed faces another big decision.
It's going to be a function of do they decide they want to continue to raise the rate hikes again, another 0.5 or 0.75%.
How new inflation numbers could factor in as the clock ticks down to a Friday deadline to avoid a rail strike.
We're urging them to act as quickly as possible at this point.
We continue to look at the impacts it could have on the entire ag industry right now on AgDay. Good morning and welcome to AgDay. I'm Michelle Rook. Clinton is on assignment. Rail shipments are already starting to slow ahead of a possible rail strike, which could happen as early as this Friday. And it couldn't come at a worse time for agriculture. That's why ag groups are urging Congress to help avert a strike, including the Fertilizer Institute. Officials saying they're already seeing rail shipments of fertilizer products like ammonia halted. The industry is preparing for the worst, but says even a short-lived strike would be devastating for fertilizer movement.
So there's basically transportation alternatives and site storage. That's what everyone's going to have to evaluate, and they'll have to go site by site to do it. And some folks may have to start to slow down production just to kind of avoid having to completely shut down a facility.
Each day the rail network is shut down, it equates to a week of no shipments. And it couldn't come at a worse time on the cusp of harvest and fall fertilizer season.
So it's not just about us getting inputs out to farmers so that, not mean us, the fertilizer, our members getting their products out to farmers and they need them for fall application. That's coming right now. And so, there are windows for these activities, but there's also all the farmers and they got their harvest and they got to bring those to market, both domestic and international. There's famine around the world is going to be a real serious thing for us to watch and take care of going forward for the next 12 months.
He says fertilizer applications contribute to half of all crop yields, and there's already a global shortage with European fertilizer production down 50% as a result of record high natural gas prices. So this type of catastrophic supply chain crisis would further impact global food insecurity. Besides the movement of grain and fertilizer, there could be other potential impacts on ag if there was a rail strike. Shipments of cotton would be impacted. Jordan Lay, a senior trader at Dakota Global, says there is a lot of old crop that needs to ship via rail. The former president of the American Cotton Shippers Association says the industry doesn't need this hiccup right now. Livestock and poultry would also be hurt. The National Grain and Feed Association says a shutdown would force producers to make difficult decisions regarding the viability of their animals. And the association also says processing and biofuels plants may have to scale back production due to the inability to move both commodities for processing and moving out finished products. The overall food industry would also feel the effects. The Consumer Brands Association says it would cause problems when it comes to availability, affordability, and accessibility of everyday essential products for consumers. Ahead of a possible strike, Amtrak is preemptively suspending service on some of its routes. That includes Chicago to Los Angeles, Seattle, and San Francisco, and part of one of its routes from Los Angeles to San Antonio. Amtrak says it's closely monitoring the ongoing negotiations, which do not involve Amtrak or its workforce. But since Amtrak does not own the track itself, thousands of miles of travel could be impacted. About 60,000 union members, including engineers and conductors, are set to go on strike. And we'll continue to keep you updated on the potential for a rail strike as a Friday deadline looms. Make sure to follow us on air and online for the very latest. Investigators in North Dakota are releasing new details about a murder-suicide that unfolded in a farmer's wheat field. The Towner County Sheriff's Office says there was a dispute between two brothers prior to the murder-suicide, which happened on a farm just northeast of Leeds, North Dakota. They say autopsy results and evidence at the scene suggest 59-year-old Robert Bracken killed his brother, his own son, and a third man before shooting himself on August 29th. Killed were Bracken's 64-year-old brother, Richard Bracken, Robert's 34-year-old son, Justin Bracken, and 56-year-old Douglas Dulmage. The Brackens were working the harvest for Dulmage in his field at the time. Investigators say Robert and Richard Bracken had been in a dispute which had been escalating for a week or more before the shootings. Flash flooding, an issue in parts of Kingman, Arizona, about an hour and 45 minutes southeast of Las Vegas, where it's reported rain fell at a rate of 4 to 5 inches an hour. People in parts of the city were warned to move to higher ground, with the Weather Service calling it a life-threatening and dangerous situation, as moisture from what is left of Hurricane K continues to push east. And that unsettled pattern continues in the west, but it is helping to cool things off. Meteorologist Matt Yurasovic is tracking it.
That's right, Michelle. We've got some cooler weather for parts of the west. Meanwhile, the heat is going to be on in the east all the way through really the next week and a half at least. And if we take a look at this map right here, you can really see a big ridge going to be building through the middle part of the country and also up towards the east coast. Places like the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast going to be much above average with regards to those temperatures over the next at least 10 days, and it'll be much cooler in the west. Here's a look at the jet stream as we're kind of watching that ridge start to build in the east. As we head over the next few days and towards the weekend, things are going to start to get warmer, more humid, especially in parts of the Great Lakes. And then you notice that big dip in the jet stream off to the west for the early part of next week. And depending on how things play out, we could be cooler and more unsettled through the middle part of the country in a week or two from now. And that could lead to more precipitation right through the middle of the country that's been extremely dry lately. But they could be working in a lot of rainfall as harvest gets going over the next month or so. And harvest is rolling in Mount Sterling, Illinois. Alex Kerr sharing this spectacular sunset as corn harvest continues. Lots of long days out in the fields now. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
And we're getting our first look at how harvest is progressing. USDA releasing its weekly crop progress report, saying that 5% of the corn crop has been harvested. Now that's 1% ahead of the 5-year average. Crop condition ratings dropping again, though, now 53% rated good to excellent. That's down another 1% from last week. Soybean ratings also falling again, now 56% rated good to excellent, also down 1% from last week. 10% of the winter wheat is now planted. That's 3% ahead of the 5-year average. But winter grain planting in Ukraine may see a cut following Russia's invasion of the country. According to the Ukrainian Agrarian Council, they're looking at a likely cut to winter grain planted area by at least 30%. It says it's due to a jump in prices for seeds and fuel combined with the low selling price of their grain. The country also reported it has exported a record 1.63 million metric tons of sunflower seed. It comes amid a fall in sunflower oil shipments and processing in the country. Inflation continues to weigh on consumers and the markets. The latest consumer price index shows while inflation has slowed, prices are still rising for many key items. The monthly CPI rose 8.3% from a year earlier. It's up 0.1% from July as lower gas prices were offset by higher costs for rent and food. But analysts were expecting a decrease. Core inflation, which excludes energy and food prices, also increased 6.3% in August compared to a year ago. Month over month, it was up 0.6%. Now, that's double July's pace and a signal broad price pressure strengthened. This will likely push the Federal Reserve to hike its benchmark rate another 75 basis points following the central bank's policy meeting next week. And it may even result in more aggressive increases after that.
Pretty good bet now. You're going to see the 0.75% interest rate hike on Thursday and likely to see the Fed talk about raising interest rates once again after that.
Food inflation was up 0.8%, with the biggest price increases led by eggs, rising 2.9% for August. They're up nearly 40%, though, over the past year. Cereals and bakery products rose 1.2%, followed by a 0.8% increase in beef and a 0.5% rise in fruits and vegetables. After a big up day on Monday in soybeans, we saw soybeans ease in an otherwise mixed market. We'll talk more about what led the markets today with Bryant Grady. And later, a welcome sight for North Dakota's farmers following last year's drought in the country.
Ag Day is brought to you by Endzone from Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your End Zone fan now and get 13% off while supplies last.
Joining us with market analyst Brian Brady with Pro Farmer, and a mixed day in both grain and livestock futures trade on Tuesday. Corn and soybeans, everything was kind of embroiled here in what looked like some profit taking, but money flow issues kind of tied to the CPI.
Absolutely. You know, the USDA kind of stole the show on Monday, came back and the CPI data, inflation data, really stole the show here on Tuesday. And you know, we have to keep an eye on those macroeconomics. So Monday's trade showed us that the fundamentals are still key, but Tuesday's trade showed us that the macroeconomic side of things is definitely in play and had an impact, most definitely.
Obviously, the Dow down hard and the dollar up almost over a full point, right?
Yeah, the dollar, I think that's the one to watch, obviously, from an ag perspective and the exports, because it does have a direct impact. Now, wheat, the market that should be impacted the most by the dollar, actually performed the best. And so, you know, it's somewhat of a head scratcher, I think, but influence on corn and just the general risk off had an influence on the soybean market, which pulled back from those massive gains that were posted in the aftermath of the USDA report data.
Yeah, that's why I said it felt like kind of a profit-taking day all the way around. What about soybeans, though? We got above the $15 mark, then closed back below it. But do you think the market has digested this lower crop size, or do we have to go higher to do that?
Well, the acreage was the surprise there. You know, the yield came down, but the acreage was the big cut. And so that's fully factored in the market. We doubt that USDA will make any major changes from here forward to the soybean acreage. Now it's a matter of what happens with yield. And it wouldn't be unprecedented to see them cut yield in September and then move back up in October, November, or by the final in January. So have to watch that into the close. We have had some late season rains that should help some of those late developing soybeans.
And what would it take for corn to get back above $7? If you can't see a 10-year low in ending stocks do it, what will?
Well, I think soybeans have to lead the way, and corn showed yesterday or on Monday that it will follow. So that's a key component. I think that the soybeans probably need to be the price leader to the upside, and corn would follow. But we do have a tight stocks, pipeline supplies, and that'll have to factor out over the course of the next 12 months, basically.
All right, thanks for your analysis, Brian Brady with Pro Farmer. We'll have ag weather coming up. With a look at our national ag weather forecast, we have meteorologist Matt Yarosavic and more flooding potential off to the west.
Yeah, again, this is a couple of days now in a row that we've seen chances for scattered showers, heavier downpours in the west, and it could lead to some more flooding out there. And you can see the areas highlighted in green and yellow, especially across parts of Nevada and Utah, even parts of Colorado, dealing with an enhanced chance, a 40% or moderate chance for some of the flooding potential as we head through the rest of today, even into early tomorrow. And that's because scattered showers, some heavier downpours could create some localized flooding in those areas. And we can actually zoom in here and we'll show you that it is from really the parts of the Rockies here in parts of western Colorado, really right on through, including Salt Lake City and down just to the north of Las Vegas, an area that saw the heavy rain potential yesterday and now is seeing that again as we head through today. And here's a look at those rain chances here. You can see the scattered areas of some heavier downpours there moving through parts of Nevada and Utah, even some scattered showers working their way into parts of New Mexico and into the Central Plains as well. Most of the east will be dry, scattered showers along the cold front down in parts of Florida, and still some rain exiting the northeast through the day. And that's with this system here finally getting on out of here, still dragging the cold front along Florida. So that'll keep things unsettled through the next few days. But then high pressure replacing that, and that's going to create more sunshine and warmer temperatures as well. And then we've got a couple of lows out here moving across parts of the Rockies and the Four Corners region. That's going to keep things unsettled out there. And then we've got another storm system moving right across the border there, United States and Canada. We'll keep most of the rain into Canada, but could drag a few showers into the northern tier over the next few days. And then things become more unsettled through the weekend and through early next week. But out ahead of those systems off to the west, staying very warm and muggy, and it's going to be a little bit cooler in the east over the next few days. But then the heat will start to build through the middle of the country and then move eastward with that ridge as we head through the weekend and into next week. And you can see that right here starting to build off in the east as we head through the weekend, and you get another ridge or a trough here in the west that's going to keep things unsettled back in the west even into the middle part of next week. And we'll continue to track that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Richmond, Kentucky, patchy fog and then sunny in the afternoon. Bismarck, North Dakota, partly cloudy with an afternoon thunderstorm possible, a high near 84 degrees. And Cedar City, Utah, scattered showers and thunderstorms, a high up 70 degrees.
Pork producers are taking some profits, but they're also seeing some pressures. Plus, meet the new face behind the National Pork Board's myth-busting campaign. It's someone you may recognize next. Fair to finish, hog producers are finding some profits right now, but higher feed costs are cutting into that. The Sterling Profit Tracker reports producers last week found profits of $38 per head, up 21% from the same time last year. But average feed costs for finishing hogs are up 29%, more than the same time last year. Meanwhile, pork packers saw losses of an estimated $23 per head. That's down 230% from last year when it was around $17 profitable. There's a new face for the National Pork Board's Myth-Busting 2.0 campaign. It's country music superstar and 5-time Entertainer of the Year, Luke Bryant. Bryant grew up on a farm in Georgia where he says he learned the value of hard work and sacrifice to put food on the table. One way that he's attempting to change the public perception of farming is through his annual farm tour. It's a rural concert series held on farms throughout the Midwest this month. This marks the 13th year of Bryant focusing his fall schedule on America's farmers.
My whole life has been nothing but farming. Growing up with a group of farmers in my circle that have just taught me how to navigate life, and so farming is very, very important for me, and using Farm Tour to really showcase and build up what farmers actually do for the world. I'm just spreading the message of how clean and environmentally safe pig farms are. From the start of farming pigs to the time they land on the table, it's such a well-oiled machine of how that process happens, and just spreading the love out there for these hard-working pig farmers across the country.
The farm tour starts tomorrow at Spangler Farms in Monroeville, Indiana. For a complete schedule, make sure you head over to porkbusiness.com. Coming up, North Dakota farmers battle back from drought as some celebrate bringing in the hay harvest in the country.
Closed captioning on Ag Day is brought to you by BASF. BASF, helping you do the biggest jobs on earth.
Last year's drought isn't something anyone will soon forget in North Dakota, but wetter conditions this year, especially in the spring, have led to better crops, and that's helping some producers put 2021 out of their minds. As Jody Kurzman of AgDay affiliate KFYR spoke with one producer near Flasher who is now working on a second cutting of hay.
This might be Dar Schmidt's best hayfield.
It's a unique piece of land there where it's pretty productive.
This is the second time he's made hay on this field this summer. He planted rye on this ground last fall and made that into hay in June. Then Schmidt planted sorghum. Now he's making that into hay.
It turned out pretty good.
He's averaging about 4 bales an acre, a welcome sight after last year's drought.
Last year was quite a bit drier, yep. It's definitely better than last year. But we got way more bales than we had last year.
Schmidt says spring rains are to thank. It's been dry here for the past few months.
We haven't had no decent rain since early July there, you know.
Still, he's happy to get 2 cuttings from this field. He'll use these bales to feed his 300 head of cattle this winter. And while he may have more than he needs, he'll keep the extra as a sort of insurance, because he knows just how unpredictable the weather in North Dakota can be. Near Flasher, I'm Jody Kurzman, reporting for your news leader.
And that's all the time we have for this morning. For all of us here at AgDay, have yourself a great day.